Rob, Rob, thank you for being here.
My pleasure.
And I mean, this is just wonderful. I mean, I saw you down there in the Winter Garden. You were with your wife, which I wish I'd asked to come here too. So please forgive me for not asking you to come. Maybe we can work, do you another time, and then I'll have that'll be 2 podcasts out of 1. That'd be fantastic. Tell me, let's start off first of all. Where were you born?
I was actually born in Los Angeles.
So was I.
Yeah. Born in LA. My parents lived in Alhambra at the time. And
We did this already, haven't we?
I don't think so.
Okay. Alhambra.
Yeah.
What year were you born?
1967, right at the end of 67, in December.
Okay.
So yeah, born in LA, moved around an incredible amount, both as a kid and then as an adult. So it's kind of nice that you ask where were you born rather than where are you from, because I have a terrible time with the question, where are you from?
Because wait, your father was in service or something?
My father was an engineer who worked project work, and he worked for a number of different companies, but it was always work a project, finish it, move to the next one, work a project, finish it, move to the next one. And so as a kid, I moved, I don't know exactly how many times, but it averaged about every 2 years.
But you sound like, Rob, like you're the only child.
No.
Okay, because you moved on to, how many children did your father have?
My father had 4 kids. My mother had 2 kids. So my father was married 3 times and then had a very long-term relationship at the end with, not his 4th wife, but his 4th love, I guess. But he had 2 children in his first marriage and 2 children in his 3rd marriage.
Where are you?
I'm number 3 of the 4.
Wait. So which marriage are you
3rd
the
marriage.
result of? 3rd marriage.
Yeah.
So how many siblings are related to you and your dad and your mother?
There's me and my younger sister.
Okay, so he had 2 by your mother.
Yeah. And then 2 from his first marriage, an older brother and an older sister.
How many years difference were they from? Since you were the first.
14 and 11 years.
Wait, you're 14 years younger?
I'm 14 years younger than my brother.
Who's the next one to you who's above you?
No, my older sister was 9 years older than I am.
Okay.
And my older brother was 14 years older than I am.
Did you all live together?
No, we never lived together. We did know each other growing up and had a lot of interaction, but they were considerably older than we were, and so odd relationship, I guess, or what you would expect with such a big age difference.
Are you still, close with them? Or were you ever close with them?
My older sister died in 2011. And then my older brother still lives in Israel, and we
lives in Israel. You mean that's where your father was married? He lived in Israel?
No, sorry. My dad started. I'm gonna find out. My dad started in Chicago.
Okay, so your dad
grew up
Chicago.
Mostly in Chicago, and his first wife he met in Chicago when he was quite young.
Okay, was she Jewish?
She was Jewish, yeah.
Okay, because your mom isn't. You told me already.
No, my mom is not.
Okay, so his first wife was Jewish.
Yeah.
He had 2 kids by them.
Yes.
Did they move to Israel ever?
No, my brother moved to Israel 30 odd years ago. He went to kibbutz.
Okay, yes.
And then decided that he liked it. He went back and he opened his own business, a fiber optic company, and stayed there, met his wife. He's got 5 kids of his own there now.
And you're not close at all?
We keep in touch. I mean,
Okay.
we're not daily talking or anything like that,
Right.
but we're...
But do you consider yourselves brother? You just happen to have the same
absolutely.
father?
No, absolutely.
Really?
Consider ourselves siblings, and
Okay.
try to keep in touch, try to keep track of his kids. Have been to visit him in Israel a couple of times.
Really? Okay.
We tried to do as well as we can. He comes through to the Philippines occasionally, and a couple of times on his routing through, I've gone up to the route that he takes us through Seoul, Korea, or Incheon in Korea. So I'll go up and meet him there, sit down, have lunch with him, kind of chat, catch up, and whatnot, and then he heads back to the Philippines.
Do you guys look alike? Anyone?
Not really. I mean, I think that there are some similarities. The big
and
ears.
he's not Orthodox. He is
Orthodox. Yeah.
So he has the locks.
He's not Hasidic.
Hasidic, yeah.
But he is quite religious, very, very observant, and what I would call Orthodox, yes.
Okay.
And he and all of his kids as well, and his wife.
Right.
My older sister was as well, though she then ended up marrying a man who was not Jewish. He converted.
She got him to convert.
She got him to convert
Okay.
for the wedding. As she put it, the conversion didn't stick. But he's a great guy.
Well, you're still close with him? They're still together?
I don't. No. My
Okay.
sister passed away
I'm sorry, that's
back
just-
in
I'm sorry,
2011.
Yeah, right.
And he's since remarried.
I was thinking about, you're talking about your older sister. You're talking
My
about your
older sister.
brother's sister.
Younger sister and I are very close. We talk often.
Okay.
And
And how many years between the two of you?
3.
Okay, so you guys are really tight.
Pretty tight, yeah.
I mean, really tight. That's the tightest
more
sibling
so
you have.
lately than probably when we were younger, but yeah, definitely.
Does she have children too?
She has one little girl,
And you have one
Ray,
little-
and I've got my one son. Now my son's
Okay.
23 and Ray is 6.
Okay, so
So we're very, very big difference. She had her daughter late in life. I should probably kill me for saying this, but
you
unexpectedly.
don't have to. You don't have to. You
No,
don't-
it's okay.
We can cut this out. You know.
No, it's okay.
Okay.
And she and her husband got married 3 years ago, I think it is.
She wasn't married before then, or
They're both Ray's parents, but they married after Ray was born. Yeah.
right? But then they decided to get married.
Yes. So they met, dating, had a daughter unexpectedly.
What generation is she? Generation X? Or wait,
She would be right at the tail end of Gen X. Yeah.
Gen X. Yeah, because I'm trying to get this. The more people I'm interviewing of different ages, the more I'm trying to, because it's just throwing me for a loop. The different way people perceive life and how they're going through. Because mine, being a baby boomer, was very clear. I thought.
Yeah, and I think
We started to get away from that.
I think that Gen X still has something of a clarity, but there's this muddiness to life for the Gen X folks because we never really fit.
You're Gen X.
I'm Gen X, yeah.
Right. So is my sister.
Yeah.
I think my sister.
So I'm relatively early Gen X, I think.
Right.
My sister is a little bit later, and it was a short generation anyway. Then you move along, and my son is a millennial. I guess now it's Gen Z.
Right, or something like that, right.
And I guess Ray is a Gen Z.
Now, when you say it was a short generation, what do you mean short? How was it short?
Well, comparatively speaking, in the number of years that Gen X covers versus the number of years that the baby boomers cover, or the number of years that...
Well, how do they decide?
Don't know.
Is
It's
that
somewhat
true?
arbitrary.
Is that really true? It's just
From
arbitrary.
what I've read, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I'm no expert
I
on
thought it was
on
like,
this topic,
after
but
so many, like maybe a couple of decades, then you go to the next generation. I didn't know. I don't know.
I don't think there's any
I have to look it up.
standard to it. I think,
Okay.
certainly for the baby boomers, it's post-war.
Right.
There's
no doubt about it.
mom and dad came home from the war,
Right.
and that's the baby boom generation.
Everybody had a chicken in the pot, and everyone had a car, and it was,
somewhere mid-60s, that sort of runs out, and the flower power generation starts to have kids, and that becomes
Gen X.
Gen X.
That's right.
Somewhere, I think it's around 82.
They start the millennials.
They
That's right.
start the millennials, and those are the folks who effectively are coming of age at the millennium.
Right.
And then there's I guess I would call it a sub-generation in there somehow, and that's the digital natives. The folks who were born and have never not known the internet.
Right. They didn't know anything linear. It was all digital, yes.
And I think most of the millennial generation falls into that because, I mean, effectively, my son was around and computers had become ubiquitous at that point. But, yeah, information technology makes a big shift, and that's part of the generation. I'm sure there's other technologies that have driven it as well. But the millennial generation, I mean, they're huge. They're the second baby boomer generation in some ways.
Okay, so you were born in LA, back to that.
Yeah, born in Los Angeles.
How was your childhood? Where did you grow up then? Since you said
Everywhere.
people like to say, so everywhere, because your father went from project to project. Name some
Project to
places.
project.
Give
So
me your standard.
we lived in California, we lived in Colorado, we lived in Illinois, we lived in Arizona, I spent time in Korea, in Guatemala, in Finland, UK. So
well, take me through your age, but take me through the ages, because that's going to tell me more about you. Let's say, for example, when you were in elementary, were you still in the States, or had you gone outside the United States?
Primarily in the States, had been outside the United States at that point.
Where?
And come back.
To where?
The UK.
You went to the UK, okay.
Yeah. Kindergarten I think started in Colorado, then moved on to Illinois. Illinois was a couple of years. Middle school then begins in Arizona, and finished middle school in the Bay Area, in Foster City. After middle school, my parents split up. My mom moved to Stockton, California, and that's where we first sort of, that's the longest settlement before I graduate from high school.
Did your mom get married again, or did she?
No, never married again.
Okay, so she was raising the two of you.
Yeah. My mom, wonderful woman, amazingly strong woman who took on my sister and I, which is a challenge, I'm sure.
Were you good with the moves, or did you feel really? Because some children don't like moving.
I got to the point of we don't spring clean, we move.
Gotcha.
I mean, it just became part of life.
Right.
So I never felt odd about it. I think my sister took it harder.
Okay.
But we moved to Stockton. I finished high school in Stockton. From Stockton, went to Los Angeles for university, Cal State Long Beach and UCLA. Right. And then basically I'd gone on a Navy scholarship to university, so that's my start of the Navy. I started in the Navy at 18, did 4 years as a reservist, as a student. No, well, I did enlist.
ROTC. But not enlisted, so you were enlisted, but you weren't commissioned at all. Did you want to become commissioned?
Graduated from my senior year of high school, I had decided I wanted to join the Navy. I'd applied to the Naval Academy and I'd not applied to anywhere else.
Why is that? Why did you decide you wanted the Navy?
I read the book The Winds of War and the follow-on War and Remembrance, and I fell in love with the character Pug Henry.
Okay.
And I wanted to be Pug Henry. So I decided I wanted to be a battleship captain. I wanted to be Pug Henry and a leader in the Navy, and that was it. That was the direction.
What age were you at this time when you read that?
16.
And you said, "This is it."
This is it. That's the dream. I got to university under the scholarship. So I'd finished high school. I didn't get into the Naval Academy.
How many times did you apply? Just once?
I applied twice.
Okay.
The second time I was accepted, but by that time I was into my third year of ROTC and decided it was better to stay ROTC than to move to the Naval Academy. I was closer to getting a commission at that point.
Okay. So because that would have taken longer had you gone.
Exactly. Would have added 2 years to my my total.
Would have benefited you in any way?
No, none that I can see.
Okay, got you.
So I got turned down by the Naval Academy. I enlisted in the Navy, went to boot camp, and in boot camp, got a call from a recruiter at the Naval Academy, and it's one of those moments in boot camp. You don't get phone calls in boot camp.
Right, that's true.
Unless someone died.
That's right, exactly.
And so
exactly. You thought
I get Moss phone call, and I'm like, oh God.
Oh please. Yeah.
And I got on the phone, and this lieutenant from the Naval Academy, who I kicked myself because I never got his name. I don't remember his name. This lieutenant from the Naval Academy did something that changed my life. Gets me on the phone and he says, "Hey, look, we've looked at your application. You got a great application. You missed the class this time around, but I think we can get you into ROTC on an ROTC scholarship. Would you like an ROTC scholarship?" And me, very binary brain at that point, went, "Scholarship? Yes."
Okay.
So my answer to the lieutenant was yes. What's ROTC?
Right.
I had no idea.
You say yes without knowing.
I heard scholarship. I said yes.
I'm good. Okay.
And I'm glad I did. And next thing I know, finished boot camp. I'm off to UCLA, and I spent 4 years as a reservist in UCLA as a midshipman, which is a student, effectively. During the summers, you go on cruises with the Navy.
Wait, you're at the University of Southern California. Wait, UCLA.
So I was enrolled at Cal State Long Beach.
Right, okay.
The ROTC unit was at UCLA. It's a crosstown relationship.
And
okay. I attended both schools. I did classes at both schools, but my degree is from Cal State.
But they bused you there? They just gave you, put you on a bus. You had to,
I had to drive back.
way.
I had to commute back and forth, yeah.
But Bishop, you're a reserve officer. Wait, ROTC means you're reserve.
Reserve Officer Training Corps,
right?
Yeah. So I was a reserve midshipman.
Okay.
My job was to be a student.
Okay.
And then to train in the summertime to become a commissioned officer. So first summer they sent me to Japan on a ship in Yokosuka. Second summer was something called Corps Train Mid. What did it stand for? Career Orientation Training Midshipman.
Okay.
And you spent a week being a Marine, a week in a submarine, a week on a ship, a week with the aviators, and it was supposed to give you an exposure to everything and let you figure out what you wanted to do in the military, or what you wanted to try to do in the military. And then the third summer, I came back to Japan, to Yokosuka again.
This is not you asking for this. This is just part of the training.
I asked for it both times.
Wait. So you're an ROTC, and then they gave you a dream sheet and said, where would you like to go?
Effectively.
Okay.
So during the summers, they give you a dream sheet and say, what are you interested in?
Right, okay.
You fill it out, and I ended up getting the ship out of an FFG out of Yokosuka called the Rodney M. Davis.
Okay.
Then the third year, they asked me what I wanted to do, and I applied for a exchange program with the Korean Navy.
Mm-hmm.
And I ended up I spent 3 weeks on a US ship out of Yokosuka, 3 weeks on a Korean PCC called the Kunsan, and then came back. So 6 weeks in total working, but on those two different ships.
Okay.
And I was part of a group of, I think it was 10 midshipmen
Mm-hmm.
who were exchanged for that summer.
Mm-hmm.
Then I came back, finished up my last year of school. I was a terrible student, so I had an extra half semester.
Meaning, how were you terrible? In what way? Just grades you wouldn't study? What was causing this terror?
My first semester in college, I failed physics.
Okay, why? You because
just didn't apply myself would be the best way to say it, I'm sure. I ended up failing the lab portion of the class, which failed the class.
Mm-hmm.
And had to retake that, and basically that put me a couple of credits behind when things got to the end.
And they allowed you to continue even though you failed the class?
Yeah. I ended up on what's called academic probation for a semester.
And if you had failed that, then they would have taken away your scholarship?
They would have taken the scholarship away.
That's okay,
sure.
Gotcha.
And I did well after that, so I mean, in the end things went well, but I timed things poorly, and I needed 2 credits at the end.
Mm-hmm.
So I finished my 4th year of college, came to the instructors at the ROTC unit and said, look, I need to take this extra 2 credits. Can I take it in summer school? And the cost of summer school for 2 credits was roughly the same as the cost for a full semester at regular school. And
what?
The Navy said, nope, take the full semester. So I took a full semester extra.
This will put you back, okay.
Which then got me commissioned in December. And oddly, it worked in my favor years down the road in the way that Navy career progression went.
Mm.
But no grand plan. I just
Right.
was screwed up.
Just winging it, right.
Finished college, joined the Navy as a full-time officer.
Would you owe them 6 years?
Owed them 5 years from graduation.
5 years from graduation.
Yeah.
And you already spent 4 years in college.
No. The 5 years is after graduation.
I know that, but you had 4 years in college.
Oh, yes.
And that's still on them because they're paying for your
Exactly.
the whole thing. So then they say you must give me. So essentially, you're giving the Navy 9 years.
Exactly.
Right.
Except that as soon as I took my commission and went to flight school, in the course of all this, I decided battleships were not the right way to go, and I went to flight school.
What changed your mind on that?
Actually, during my senior year of college, the Navy decided to decommission all of the battleships. The Missouri, the Iowa,
right.
those got decommissioned over the course of the next couple of years. They announced the decommissioning in I think it was 1989.
And you felt that? I mean,
that was the dream. It was to be on a battleship.
But what's the closest to that would be? Wouldn't it be just the destroyers? I mean, the
next thing would have been a cruiser, I guess.
A cruiser, yeah.
But the romantic image that I had of the Navy, which was
long guns,
all kinds of screwed up, but it was the romantic image that I had of the Navy changed drastically. They gave me a test called the AQTFAR, Aviation Qualification Test and Flight Aptitude Rating.
Okay.
And I did very well on it. And so I sat down with one of the instructors at the ROTC unit, who happened to be an aviator, and started to talk about this, and he sold me on aviation.
Okay. He was obviously an aviator.
He was an aviator.
What did he fly?
He flew E2Cs.
What
was
those? You have to make it layman's terms.
Sure. E2C is a carrier-based airborne radar platform. So when you see the ones with the big dish on the top, exactly.
Right, got you. But those are C-135s in the Air Force.
KC-135s in the Air Force,
right.
But
KC-135s, right.
This is a much smaller version of that. That's much better than anything the Air Force has.
Okay.
Had to get my Navy.
Wait, hold on. Okay, go on.
No, he was the back end of a E2C.
Okay.
And he talked me into flight school. I went off to flight school, but the minute you start flight school, you no longer owe 5 years, you owe 9 years from wings.
From wings?
From wings.
As soon as you get your wings, you have to give them 9 years.
Exactly. So I spent 2 years in 12.
12 years?
Yeah, 12 years.
Wow.
Well, not counting, not counting college.
It's more.
16 counting
16 years.
Yeah.
But I just found out from some Navy, guys in the Navy that I just interviewed yesterday, a young kid, 28, he got out and he said he retired. And I said, how can you call yourself retired? You've only had 8 years in. He said, from 8 years, you can say retired after 8 years. Was that the case when you were in?
Not at all. And
not with mine.
Not true now either, unless he's medically retired.
He is medically retired.
Okay.
But it has to be 8 years, I guess.
I don't know what the minimum is for medical retirement, but the only way you can retire before 20.
Medical. That's right. It was 20 for me. I told him, when I was in the Air Force, you had to have 20 to say you were retired.
Absolutely. And that's still the same. 20 is the investment period for retirement.
Unless there's some medical reason.
Exactly.
Why you can get out at 15. Okay.
So yeah, medical retirement, then they kick you over to the VA, and there's different rules.
Okay.
But yeah, for me, I signed up happily for
16 years.
The next 9 odd.
So you did retire. You did retire.
Oh, I retired. I was 24 years in the Navy.
But that wasn't counting the extra. Wait,
that's not counting.
You were 30
28 years counting.
28
college.
years, right? You're 28 years in the military.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. How old were you when you got out? You were 40?
47.
47. Okay, that's not bad.
So no, I was still young. I would happily have stayed. I just got to a point where the options in the Navy and the options out of the Navy had finally flipped to the point that the options out of the Navy seemed better.
Okay, gotcha.
And Chica was part of that. My wife was part of that. But yeah, went to flight school, signed up for the longer period, started flying helicopters.
But isn't that one of the harder crafts to fly? Probably the hardest. Someone said their fighting is not natural. They're fighting to stay in the air. Helicopters. And he's a helicopter pilot.
Yeah.
What was he? I'm trying to think if he was a Marine or what. Frank, you might know him. I want to say Frank Clark the third. He's here. He's
okay. I don't know Frank Clark here. There is a Frank Clark who's a Marine aviator who's a general, 2-star general. But
this guy's retired. He's out with the service now.
Actually, no. Clark was. I think Clark was a 4-star.
Okay.
But anyway,
he's on the podcast though. I did him on. I should remember.
Oh, I'll have to take a look.
Yes, sitting exactly where you're sitting and telling me about was he in the Navy? No, he was in the Air Force. He was a helicopter pilot, and he said they're basically fighting to stay up in the air. They're doing it's completely unnatural. what it does.
It's unnatural. I mean, the physics of it makes sense. The how it works, I understand. All of those things. And the way I think I would describe it is, it's the unnatural part is you have to dissociate your movements from four different vectors.
Okay.
So you've got left, right, you've got forward and aft, you've got up and down, and then you've got yaw. Rotating.
So that's the one that makes it much different. Yeah.
There's relations between those, but you have to unlearn habits that you have when they relate to that, and you have to think about each of those independently and react to each of those independently.
Okay.
So when I started flight school, it's probably the second flight where they try to start teaching you to hover, because hovering is really the hardest part. When the aircraft's flying straight and level, it's very much like an airplane.
Okay.
But they put you in a box, and that box is about the size of the fountain in front of TAC.
Okay.
Very big. And you're in this little Bell Jet Ranger. It fits in the box easily. They put you in the center of the box, and the instructor who's sitting in the left seat, you're in the right seat, the instructor will say, okay, I'm going to let you do the pedals. I'm going to let you control yaw. And so you control the yaw, and he's like, I'm not doing anything, you do that. You control yaw, and the nose moves a little bit, but it's not too hard. It's okay. And it's fine. And then he says, okay, I've got the pedals. Now I'm going to let you control the altitude. And he gives you the collective, the up and down. And you hold that, and the aircraft will do a little up and down, but it's pretty stable. And then you kind of dial that in. Okay, that's good, great. He says, okay, I'm going to take that. I'm going to let you have the cyclic, which controls left, right, forward, and aft.
Right.
And you hold that, and it's kind of, you wobble a little, and you're moving back and forth, but then you get...
But why would you be going like... Isn't that just the yaw still when you're going like this?
No. Yeah, the direction the aircraft is facing, he's controlling that with the yaw. Okay, you're just kind of sliding left or right or moving forward and aft. But as you combine those, it may be a little bit left and forward, right and aft.
Get you, okay.
And so you don't move a lot, but you move a little bit, and then you kind of stabilize and go, oh, okay. And then you think, oh, yeah, I got this.
Okay.
This is now I'm going to give you everything. And immediately, and it happens to every student, immediately the aircraft goes off in some random direction, leaves the box. Usually it's forward, sometimes it's back. Leaves the box, and you're like, I don't know what I'm doing. I can't hold it. And the instructors, God love them, they've got just nerves of steel, because they'll look at you and go, you're doing this.
And you're still doing it, and you can't realize,
And you're doing this in a place, well, for me it was a place called Site 8, which is a giant, maybe hectare-sized field of grass. And there's other helicopters around, and they're doing their thing. And
I thought you were in a box. You said, wait.
Originally, you're in a box. No, the box is painted on the ground. No.
Oh,
you're in an aircraft.
See, I'm complete. I thought you were in a simulator.
You're in an aircraft.
You're in the helicopter.
Oh, yeah.
I'm having fun because I'm thinking, oh, that's so fun. And then after a while, he just turns off the machine and you're done.
No.
You can actually crash. You can actually do damage.
Now, he's not going to let you, but you could.
He has the same everything over there that you have.
Oh, he has all the controls as well.
All the controls too, so it's dual. Okay.
So you get in this thing and you're moving randomly, and invariably what happens is you move toward the edge of the field. And then when you get to the edge of the field and you see the tree line at the edge of the field, you stop. Because now some unspoken mental thing in your head is going, oh wait, I don't want to get closer to that. And you'll get somewhat stable. And he'll go, see, you can do it. He'll take the controls, he'll put you back in the box. Go ahead. Give you the controls again, and you'll go randomly off somewhere. And it takes usually somewhere between the third and the fifth flight. It clicks.
All of a sudden,
suddenly
comes together.
It all comes together, and you can hover like a pro. Because these things have no wheels; they're just skids. And then it clicks.
You're making me
and you
feel
can
good.
walk and chew gum at the same time.
Can I learn to fly now? Can I learn to become a pilot? I mean, a
Sure.
helicopter pilot? Because I am going to.
Yeah, oh, you absolutely
The
can.
reason why I was in Dubai with my son, and the pilot, an Aussie. Not that doesn't matter what he was, but he said, "Oh, this is difficult. You'll never be able to do it." Saying the wrong words to me.
I don't think there's anything about it.
If people can do it, it can be done.
provided you have your faculties and physical control.
Right.
I don't think there's anything about flying a helicopter that anybody can't learn to do.
I like the way that you told me the approach that your instructors gave you.
Yeah.
See, they do it the best because it's the military, and they want you to be able to do it. They're not gaining any money or anything else. They want you to be as proficient as you can be, and as stable as you can be as soon as you can be.
Yeah.
And they invest all their time in doing that. That's why it's. You still fly, don't you? Do you ever take a
no, I haven't flown since I came to Japan.
How long has that been?
11 years.
You don't want to?
It's not important enough that I'm jumping around to do it.
How many years did you fly?
I flew for 14 years.
14 years.
Yeah.
Now, what kind of flight was what did you fly?
The aircraft I flew the most was called the MH-53E, and the another variant called the CH-53E.
What did they do?
They're mostly utility. The MH was also for mine hunting. So the MH-53 would tow sleds through the water that would hunt for mines. I was not a mine hunting guy. I was a principally utility guy. My specialties ended up being things like non-combatant evacuations, and I was an aerial refueling instructor and night tech landing instructor. But I spent the majority of my career hauling lots of stuff out to some place in the middle of nowhere or out to a ship, dropping it off, exchanging it for a whole bunch more stuff, and bringing that back.
You never thought about becoming a professional pilot outside of the Navy? And
I did. I didn't want to be a bus driver.
Okay.
I mean,
that's how you looked at it. Okay.
I probably could have done it. I've got the hours for an ATP, an airline transport pilot. I would need to tack on some qualifications to my FAA license, but I mean, I guess I could do it under the GI Bill if I wanted to.
Right.
But somewhere along the way, I used to say there were two kinds of pilots in the Navy: pilots who were naval officers and naval officers who also happened to be pilots.
Gotcha.
I was more of a naval officer who also happened to be a pilot.
Gotcha.
I joined the Navy because I was crazy about the Navy. The flying thing was just fun to do on
that happened
as a collateral duty.
Right.
So,
what rank did you make it to?
Commander.
And what is that in the Air Force?
Lieutenant Colonel.
Lieutenant Colonel. Okay.
Yeah. So, I got to my Lieutenant Commander tour major as what we call department head in the squadron.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of a big shifting point, and you've got to come out of that with a number one ticket and a couple of different checks in the blocks.
What's the number one ticket?
Number one ticket being your number one evaluation among all of the O4s in the squadron.
What do you mean? Wait, in order for you to become a lieutenant colonel?
In order for you to be selected for command of a squadron.
Squadron. You have to be the best of all the commanders they're selecting.
Of all the commanders in that squadron, you've got to be selected by that commanding officer as his number one guy.
Oh, I got you.
You've also got to fill the right job, and there's a bunch of little ticks in the box that you've got to get. I had all the ticks in the box. I got to my next job, and I didn't get selected for command of a squadron. I was working at a place called the Bureau of Personnel, so I knew literally minutes after the board finished that I hadn't been selected for command. And that fundamentally changes where you can go in the Navy. To make captain, to make 06 colonel, you have to have command of a squadron. If you don't have command of a squadron, you're never going to make it. So I knew early that I wasn't going to have command of a squadron, and so I, commiserated first. beat myself up about whatever it is that I didn't do.
Right. And you have no other chance. You have one shot.
You have two shots.
Two shots.
The second shot is for a lesser form of squadron, so a training squadron, or not an operational squadron, but something else.
Can you still maneuver outside of that and go?
You can,
to go?
and so I came up with a grand plan to make captain by other means.
Okay.
And I wanted to go to be a Naval Attaché and convert from aviation to foreign area officer, which is a different specialty in the Navy. And I was on track for that. I'd been selected to be the attaché in Bangkok. And over the course of the selection process, came up with a conflict of interest between myself and the government of Thailand. Someone close who was deeply in business with the government of Thailand, and DIA decided that was a conflict of interest. So they pulled me out of Thai language training with actually no notice. And
how long had you been there?
I'd been in training for 3 or 4 months at that point.
Okay.
Pulled me out of Thai language training, kind of benched me. There was some up in the air as to what was going to go happen, and then they offered me the job as attaché in Qatar. And
what's Qatar?
Qatar.
Qatar. Okay.
Sorry.
That was a Navy term. I'm sorry.
No. Qatar is the way the Arabs pronounce it, I believe.
Okay. Qatar. Okay.
So they offered me the attaché job there. I'd already spent way more time at that point than I wanted to in North Africa and in the Middle East. I was angry about what had happened with Thailand. I was maybe not making the best decisions at the time, but it ended up being good. And I'd also just met Chica.
How'd you meet her?
We met in Washington, D.C. She was at the World Bank. We met online actually through a Match.com, I think was the site.
Okay.
But we had just met. That seemed to be going well, and so I withdrew my volunteer status as an attaché, which immediately triggered them sending me back to the Navy. And I called back to the Bureau of Personnel, to where I had previously worked, talked through what's available. And I was able to find a job at what was called the Naval History and Heritage Command. Naval History and Heritage Command is a conglomeration of things. It's the Navy Library, it's the Navy Art Gallery, it's the 13 Navy museums, it's the Navy Archives, and it's a bunch of historians who actually write documentary histories about the U.S. Navy.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went there as the head of the Aviation Archives and as the editor for a magazine called Naval Aviation News. And I had a few civilians, a couple of military people working for me. And the magazine was a bi-monthly magazine that came out and talked about what's going on in naval aviation.
Mm-hmm.
So I had a relationship with the program side of naval aviation, the money side of naval aviation, called N88. And as I worked through that job, things went well. The retired admiral who was in charge of the command decided he liked what I was doing, and they moved me to the chief of staff position. And I stayed chief of staff until I left there and came to Japan 11 years ago.
What made you decide to come to Japan after you? So you had retired then. So after you finished that job?
No, I didn't. I didn't retire out of that job.
Out of the job.
That job, I had thought I would retire, but when it ended, I was at 19 and 1/2 years. And I thought, I'll drop my letter,
yeah, right.
decide to retire. They can't move me for just the last 6 months. They'll leave me where I am, and then I'll be in Washington, D.C.
Where you wanted to be?
Chica was in Washington, D.C.
Well,
we had gotten married by that point.
Oh, you'd already been married?
We got married about a year and a half after we met.
But how many? So how many years did you have? How many years were you still in the service while you were married to Chica?
5.5, 6.
Oh, so you
Yeah.
well into okay. So she knows
so-
what it's like to be a military wife.
A little bit.
Yeah, yeah.
So the thing that changed in DC for me, I had sort of decided Chica had a great job with the World Bank. She was doing well in her career. We had a fantastic life, good friends. I mean, it was a good place to be. And as a retired officer, being a Beltway bandit it's just easy. So I thought that's what I was going to do. And then I came home one afternoon and Chica looked at me and said, well, this Navy thing, we can go other places, can't we? What?
Wait.
I hadn't even thought about this. What?
Right.
I said, well, yeah, we can. And I, again, called back to the Bureau of Personnel, and I talked to this wonderful woman, Shannon, who had worked for me while I was there. And I said, hey, Shannon, I need you to do a database search for me and send me something. And I had her send me a list of every job in the U.S. Navy that I qualified for, that met a certain set of criteria. It was for the right rank and the right kind of designator and so on. And I got this list, and it was thousands of jobs. And so first I got rid of all the ones that weren't available at the right time frame. And then I got rid of all the ones that were just nothing I wanted to do. And then I got rid of all the jobs that were very unlikely for me to fill. And after I pared everything down to stuff that was a reasonable possibility for me to fill, that I wanted to do, that was in a location that I wanted to be, and held some interest for me, there were 29 jobs.
Okay.
And I took the list of 29 jobs to Chica.
I'm sure you did.
I said, okay, look, we can ask for these. It's not. I don't have my choice.
Right.
I have to apply, and I've got to get selected. And about a quarter of the way into me explaining how this was a process, Chica looked at the list and went, "Oh, Tokyo. We should go there." And then you don't understand, and maybe
we may not get it right.
And we went back and forth, but I said, "Okay, I'll ask." And there were actually 2 jobs in Tokyo. So I called my detailer. Detailers are the guys who shepherd you into jobs, and I said, look, I'm really interested in these 2 jobs. What do you think? He said, well, let me find out. And he sent, there's an extract from your record that we colloquially call a resume. And they can automatically dump this extract, and it's a 1-page thing that goes to a command. So he sent it off to the command, and I got incredibly lucky. The guy who was in charge of the command here in Tokyo, it was a worldwide command, but the job here in Tokyo that I wanted, he had happened to be the roommate at the Naval Academy of the gentleman I worked for, the captain I worked for at the Bureau of Personnel.
Okay, but how would he know that? How would he know that?
He saw on my resume that I was at the Bureau of Personnel at the right time, and he said, I know the guy. So
got you.
They called each other and talked about me, and basically the conversation went, what do you think? Should I hire him? Yes, he's fantastic. I had nothing to do with it. I had an advocate who said, great. But then what happened is I went from, I don't know if I can get the job, to, you're a by name request. You're going to take the job. They call them orders, not invitations.
Right.
So, came back to Chica.
But Chica's happy as she can be. She doesn't know what to do.
Well, Chica was like, well, yeah, Tokyo sounds okay. Is there anything else we can... And I'm like, no. We're going to Tokyo. So we came to Tokyo. That was 2010. I got here, I think, in May of 2010. Chica came in July.
Okay. I met you when you first came, didn't I?
Very close to when we first came, yeah. And
temporary facility, I guess. You didn't come into that. You came into this building.
My first time was coming into this building, yeah, and Justin Cooper, who was...
That's right, because I was close with him and his wife, yes.
Yeah, Justin Cooper brought me in...
You took his position?
No. Justin was the defense attaché,
Right,
which is a much more senior job.
Okay.
I took a job as the officer in charge of the Office of Naval Research Global, which is the international command for the Office of Naval Research. Office of Naval Research is everything R&D about the Navy. It's, I think it's $3 billion a year, something along those lines. Office of Naval Research Global is a group of offices. So there was my office in Tokyo, another office I was responsible for in Singapore, another office I was responsible for in Chile, in Santiago at the embassy there. And then we opened an office in Sao Paulo, Brazil, while I was in the job. So I had those 4 offices. And then there were 2 offices, one in London and one in the Czech Republic, that my counterpart was responsible for. And basically they have a bunch of mad scientists who run around the world looking at small companies and universities that are outside the United States and figuring out what they're doing in research and development. And then we had a grant program that allowed us to throw money at that and support the things that were interesting. So my office in Japan and Singapore and Santiago, we did grants across Asia and South America and Australia. And I was lucky enough to get involved with the universities, get involved with the principal researchers, help them with grant money, and support what was important to the Navy. There were some interesting projects over the years. I did that for 4 years. And 2014, the original tour was supposed to be 2010 to 2013. In 2012, I said, can I extend for an extra year? And the Navy said, sure, no problem. Kept me in place. In 2013, I said, can I extend for another year? The Navy said, no.
So
I
you
said, pretty please?
They said no.
No.
And, you said,
And then they said, you're going to a boat. Pick a dead president. USS George Washington, USS Eisenhower.
You're going to pick something, yeah.
You're going to an aircraft carrier, that's it. You're an aviator, we're sending you back to an aircraft carrier. And not for a flying job. And I thought, God, I could do that. I could probably go to the carrier in Yokosuka if I wanted to. But I said, life in Tokyo is fantastic. And
you don't have a taste of
this is good. And I've got 24 years in, I can retire.
Right.
So I dropped my letter and said, thank you very much. I'm going to retire from active service. I retired in August of 2014. No idea what I was going to do at the time next. Chica had started her business here shortly after we got here, was doing very well in a consulting role, had a long-term client who she was on retainer with for multiple years. And so basically I made the commitment to Chica, all right, I'm going to stay in Tokyo for an extra 2 years until 2016. Regardless, I don't have a job. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'm going to stay here and we'll figure it out. And we did. I ended up applying to GRIPS for a PhD program.
You get your PhD?
I did not. No, I didn't start the program. I just put the application in. It really, the PhD at that point was how do I stay in Tokyo?
Right, I got you.
And I ended up, luckily enough, getting a job with a company called Paul, who manufactures filters, as their aerospace marketing guy for Asia Pacific. Working in an office in Shinjuku. It was a great place to learn. My boss was in Singapore. The VP of marketing was back in Florida. And I spent 15 months with Paul working at that, helping them kind of get their products out into the world and in the Asia market. At the end of that, Paul was purchased by a company called Danaher. I still felt like I was the new guy. I'd only been there a year at that point. And that made me nervous. The same day that Danaher announced they were buying Paul, I got a call from a recruiter for a company called Rockwell Collins, which in the aerospace industry was a big name. My graduate degree is in command control communications, so their portfolio of products fit my technical background better. And it turned out that the guy I would be working for was a former Navy helicopter pilot whose wife I had been in flight school with. So the small world.
Why would you have been in flight school with his wife?
His wife was a naval helicopter pilot as well.
Yeah,
okay, they were both Navy helicopter pilots. But she had gotten in the reserves. He went into the reserves. He started with Rockwell Collins years prior. But it everything seemed a great fit.
That's wonderful.
So I started with Rockwell Collins, spent 5 years with them. The first 3 years I was head of sales for North Asia. So Taiwan, Japan, Korea, and China. Spent every month on the road, 2 weeks out of the month, going to those locations.
Did you have your kid already? Did you have your son already?
Oh, my son was...
Yeah, big.
He was big. I mean, he was an adult at that point, so no, he wasn't living with us.
So this is all pretty recent. This isn't that long ago.
This started in 2015.
Right, 2015, yeah.
End of 2015. So 2016, 17, 18, 19, 20, I worked for Collins, Rockwell Collins.
Okay.
Went through several mergers, and they ended up as Collins Aerospace.
Mm-hmm.
And by the end of that, I was the managing director for Asia. Which another great job, but when COVID hit,
that was in 2019, really. The end of it. Well, that's when
end
it
of
started.
2019 we started, but it really, I wasn't really aware of it until we canceled our participation in the Singapore Air Show in February of 2020.
Wow.
So I got to Singapore, and the night before the air show they canceled. And said we're not participating, and by the way, you can't go to the air show site.
And you said, okay, now this is becoming real. Yeah.
I came home. That was the last time I traveled international at all. And I went from 10 years. I mean, even with the Navy, I was traveling monthly overseas.
Right. And you enjoy that?
Loved it.
Okay.
Absolutely loved it, and would love to go back to it. But from pretty much June of 2010 until February of 2020, I was outside of Japan at least 1 week of every month. And then stopped, didn't leave the city of Tokyo until, I guess it was about May of 2020, we went on a trip to Hakaba.
And yet, you and Chica were sitting together looking like you really enjoyed each other's company. But I'm just saying, she's
a good actor.
It was hard for everyone to change their routine because we were all used to moving and knowing we have our partners, but they have to be there every single day. I don't know, is there anything natural about that?
It depends. I mean, I know people who do it and love it.
If we have a farm, or something like that, but we're not on a farm.
But from a work perspective, it hit a lot of things. I mean, the aviation industry went down so quickly so drastically.
Yes.
And my job as MD, I was attached to the commercial side of Collins Aerospace, not the military side of Collins Aerospace. I worked both, but I was financially attached to the commercial side of the business.
Hit hard.
And I saw that writing on the wall. So another recruiter called at an opportune time, and a company called FLIR Systems called me up, said, we're interested in you. I knew the guy who was doing the job that I would be taking over at the time. And I started talking to them, and this was a very long process. We started talking, I think, in October of 19.
Okay.
And we finished, I hired on with FLIR in September of 2020.
You're with them now?
Yeah, I'm with them now.
Oh, wow.
And the thing for me was I knew things at Collins were going to go south for the commercial side. And what confirmed it, a week after I gave my notice, Collins announced 15,000 job cuts in the coming months. A week after I actually left and started with FLIR, Collins upped that number to 20,000 job cuts. So it was a good decision, I think. I think had I stayed, they would have kept me and I'd probably be fine. But left Collins, which was very mixed emotion. It was a great company to work for. I think I learned more there than any place outside the Navy I've ever been. And really a lot of things that I wish I'd known when I was in the Navy.
Gotcha.
So the last year, not quite a year, I've been with FLIR Systems. FLIR got taken over by a company called Teledyne. So we're now Teledyne FLIR. And I head up their sales for Asia Pacific, which seemed to be going well. We had a fantastic first half of 21. I'm scrambling right now to figure out how we're going to make a fantastic second half of 21.
You'll do it.
Well, it's funny because I didn't have line of sight to half the stuff that we pulled in the first half of the year when we started the year. And right now I'm looking at it going, I don't have line of sight to everything, but damn it, we're going to figure it out.
What's your son doing? How old is he now?
My son's 23.
23. Is he in Japan?
No. He graduated college from RPI at the end of the 1920 school year, so May of 20. Went to work for a company called Battelle, which is a large company based in Columbus, Ohio. They do a lot of defense contracting. They do a lot of other stuff as well. And he was working for them in a temp job cleaning N95 masks.
Really?
So his job, he was with a team that they would come in, they would fill up a container, like a 20-foot container with N95 masks. Then they would flood that environment with hydrogen peroxide that apparently kills off anything, and then they would clear them all out and reissue those masks for reuse.
Wow.
He did that for quite a while, but it was a term position, and just at the end of it, Battelle asked him to interview for another job. He got the job working in one of their laboratories. So he's a biomedical engineer working in a medical testing lab in Battelle.
That is nice. Did you ever try to encourage him to go into the military? Is he U.S. citizen or is he Japanese?
He's a U.S. citizen. He's not Japanese. Chika is not his mother.
Okay.
Chika and I met long after he was born.
Okay. Does she have children of her own?
Chika does not. No.
Okay.
So the military thing is a funny, slightly sore subject.
With him or with you?
With me.
Okay.
He came to me. I had tried never to push him toward the military. I'm sure there were aspects that I talked about and said it's great, you'll love it, but I tried not to push him in a direction. In his junior year of high school, to me, out of the blue, he came to me and said, "Hey, Dad, tell me about ROTC." I said, "This is great. Yeah." So I told him what ROTC was. I told him about scholarships and how they work and what I remembered of it and what it had been for me and what I had found out since then. And about 6 months later, I get a call from him. He says, "Yeah, I applied for an ROTC scholarship and I got the scholarship." He says, "It's fantastic." I said, I was thrilled. That's fantastic. That's great. Yeah, they're going to give me, X amount of money for the 4 years, and I'm going to go to school, and it's going to be fantastic. And it's wherever I want to go to school. And I thought, oh, thank goodness. And a couple of months later, I get a call. Yeah, I'm not so crazy about the military thing, so I think I'm going to turn down the scholarship.
And you said, wait. You said no.
No. I hope I said, hey, I support you. But inside, I was like,
he could hear it. What
the hell?
He could hear that.
So there was a while where I was very...
Yeah. He didn't go.
He didn't take the ROTC scholarship. He went to school. He did great in school. He and I had some agreements about grades and how long school would take and so on. He lived up to all of them.
That's wonderful.
Little cajoling sometimes on some of the things he was supposed to report back on, but he did really well in school, actually, and graduated in 4 years. I was amazed.
Wow.
So yeah, he's done incredibly well. I'm very proud of him.
How often do you talk with your son? Are you close with him that way?
Not as close as I should be, and I'm probably pretty bad about keeping in touch with him. But we try to talk on a regular basis over Google Meet and Google Hangouts, and I ping him off and on and gifts and so on.
Has he been here? Has he been?
Oh, he's been here. What, 4 times I think?
4 times. That's neat.
In the time that we've been here. It's funny too, because I mean the first time he came he was probably 14 or 15.
And he's 23 now?
And he's 23 now, yeah.
Right.
I'm staggered by the change.
Really?
Oh yeah. He's just grown in so many ways.
He was raised by his mom, of course.
Almost.
And she did a great job. She did a great job.
Oh, she did a fantastic job. Good. She was very good.
That's good. That means you picked well. Yeah.
She and I have had our ups and downs, but I cannot say anything negative about what she did in raising Brendan.
Well, that's good. Well, tell me this: how would you like to end? This has been good. I mean, because you told a really good story, and these are the type of podcasts I don't have to do any editing. I just let it go. That was fantastic, Rob. How would you like to end this? What would you like to end the audience with? I mean, by telling them, or what are your feelings about Japan, maybe?
Well, and that's what I would say. 7 years ago, leaving the Navy, staying in Japan, was a bit of a leap of faith. I had a bit of an insulation because Chica was Japanese, and we had some grounding here, but effectively, I had the opportunity to return to the U.S., have the Navy pay for everything, and start working there again and kind of set up life again. And it probably would have been easier in some ways. Staying here in Japan, I didn't know I was going to have a job. I still worry about that. I mean, I don't speak the language very well.
But you think that maybe you might just be caught with your pants down, in other words.
If I lose my job tomorrow, financially we'll be okay.
I understand.
There's changes that have to be made, sure, but financially we'll be okay. We've taken a step toward making that even better. We bought a house actually a little over a week ago down in Hayama.
All right.
So that'll be paid for between my pension and savings and whatnot. If the finances have to work, they can.
They can, gotcha.
But it weighs on me that if I lost my job tomorrow, well, I'm not here on a spousal visa. I'm here on a job visa, so I've got to shift to a spousal visa. I've got to, do everything within 90 days. And it jeopardizes my ability to stay. But then it jeopardizes us financially, and I have no guarantee that I'd be working again after that, because I'm in a very specialized industry and a niche market. Right. And I had a conversation that there's another company, a competitor company of mine that's hiring a role, and somebody suggested me as a candidate for the role. And as I was talking with them, the recruiter, I said, look, there's 25 people in the world who are probably right for that role. I think I know 12 of them, and I know 7 or 8 of those aren't available. And I mean, you can whittle the numbers down really quickly. I mean, I said, I can tell you who you're going to talk to. I can tell you what they're going to say. So for the openings that come in my position, in my area, at the level that I'm at, they're few and far between.
Gotcha.
And I know who the competition is, and I know who's going to be better or worse or stronger or whatever for each position. But I don't know when they're going to come, because you fill those jobs, and they're great jobs, and they're specialized jobs, and people sit in them for a long time. So I worry about not being able to stay here the way that I want to stay here, to stay in downtown Tokyo.
You like the way I'll end this then.
But I'm going to keep taking that leap of faith, because I like being here. I love the community. I love the life that I have here. I love the things that are available to me. It's become home. I said I've moved a lot of times. I've moved 30 times over the course of my life. The longest I've ever been in one location, by more than double, is Tokyo, Japan. So when people ask me, where are you from? I don't know. I Kantojin desu.
Yeah, that's what you are.
So it's become home.
That's great. Well, look, Ralph, thank you so much for taking the time to do this.
My pleasure.
Man, this is a really interesting story. I like it. That was really, really good. I can't wait to look at it again, because every single podcast I do, I have to go over it again. Some are easier than others, but this one's going to be easy. Because what was the name of the guy that really inspired you? I was thinking, I forgot the name of the guy you just
the character from the book.
Yeah, give me on.
Pug Henry.
Pug Henry. And I said, I'm going to have a little notebook so I can keep things like that down so I can see it later. Pug Henry. Isn't that interesting?
Herman Wouk wrote these books about World War II.
And you went through all of them?
Yeah, I read them when I was I think I was a freshman in high school, or around that time. I was an avid reader in high school, and I just fell in love with the romanticized version of the Navy that they presented in that book. And Pug Henry was this larger than life, had everything together, knew exactly what was going to happen, and was in control of it. That was the character, and that was who I wanted to be. I never became Pug Henry, and thankfully, I guess. But it launched me onto a life path that I've been very, very happy with.
Yeah, that reminds me of the movie I just watched recently. I think it's called Crimson Tide, with Gene Hackman. And Denzel Washington. And Denzel's supposed to be
nuclear submarine.
Wasn't that and that was based on a semi-true story, because they changed the whole rules after that.
It's it's an interesting
concept. That was so good. Look, Rob, thank you so much. Yes. Everyone watching this, make sure that you press like, subscribe. I want to have like 200, 300 subscribers by the end of this year. Remember to reach for the stars. It's all unknown. And what I want to tell Rob is that you're too blessed to be stressed.